I got all the finishing tapes applied here on the bottom side of the wing. Got all the inspection covers, grommets, and all that kind of stuff all on here the way they're supposed to be. Nice and pretty and neat. Last thing I did here was bring these tapes together on this trailing edge on the false spar and tie them in together. And then I put the last finishing tapes here over the wing spars. Everything looks really good, or it will look really good once it's painted. It's modelly and stuff now with this poly brush on there. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. I was thinking that the next thing I would do would be to go ahead and turn the wing over, do the leading edge and trailing edge tapes. Now on the other wing, I had my seams right here about in the middle of the false spars. I don't remember whether I ran a 3-inch or 4-inch tape over those seams, and that's kind of what it calls for on there. But on this, I did it a little bit different. I run right here is my seam for the top fabric where it wraps over and comes up to right about here, and then up to the bottom of where these hinges are here. The bottom fabric I went ahead and wrapped all the way over, ran it all the way across this false spar right here, this false spar here, right up to the edge where it breaks over to the top of the wing. So the book says that there should be at least an inch on either side of the seam, and if you got a 2-inch seam back here, I think there was only 1-inch seam needed back here on the false spars. 2-inch seam on the front, 1-inch seam back here. So they put a 3-inch tape over this seam back here on the false spars. But again, as a belt and suspenders type of thing, because of this cove right here, I decided to go ahead and glue in that whole seam there. Now, the book also says you should run finishing tape over every place where there's a hard edge. So there's a hard edge right here where this false spar breaks over, and then kind of another hard edge in here where the false spar comes in, and then the same right here, there's a hard edge right here where this false spar goes. So I'm thinking instead of just running one seam tape along here like I did on the other wing, what I'm going to do is run a seam tape here over this edge of the false spar and to double over this, and then another seam tape over this edge right here, which will cover this joint right here and double it over. So I was going to go ahead and flip the wing over top side up and start working on the finishing tapes there, tape one onto the false spar here, and then use the iron to break it over and then trip it back over and glue it down on this side, and then glue the one on the leading edge over there on the front side. But I think before I flip that wing over, I'm going to go ahead and run a finishing tape on these false spars here on this seam. And this lip right here where this is broke over is 1 inch here. So I think I'm going to run a 3-inch tape here. So that'll be 1 inch over this edge and then bent that over and be 1 inch over this edge. And then do the same thing on this one. This one I'd only need a 2-inch tape on it and run it out. I can do that, run it out, make a little scallop for it right here, and then run this tape out. So I think that's what I'm going to do first. So I guess I might as well get busy and do that. So a 2-inch, this edge, hard edge, is right there. And if I run it 1 inch over and then use a 2-inch tape, that's going to take me right to where this rolled corner is here. But if I use a 3-inch tape, that'll take me down over this edge and give it a little bit more support over that whole edge. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and use a 3-inch tape on there. Okay, and then here I'll run a 3-inch tape on this one too. Have to cut out around these hinges here, but that'll be fine. Now I got a quick batch of polybrush mixed up here. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put a little bit down here in the end of these tapes. So I'm going to make a design or shape on the end of these tapes. I'm going to cut out with pinking shears, and to make it a little easier to cut out, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of polybrush right there, and then let this stuff set up. Put a coat of polybrush on this line right here where I'm going to put the tapes. Just the same as what we've been doing, just put a nice coat of polybrush here. It's a beautiful day out there today. We've had all this rain and wind for the last few days. Well, last couple weeks, a little bit of snow here a few days ago in the 30s and so. But it's a beautiful day out there today. It says it's foggy in town. I don't know. I haven't been to town. Don't really care. But it doesn't matter. It's nice out here. A little breezy, a little cool. But all in all, a lot nicer day than what we've had. All right, that pretty much does that. We'll put this away and let that stuff set up for a while. I'm waiting for that. While I'm waiting for that bed of polybrush to dry out, to cure up a little bit, I might as well be doing something productive. And there's not much more I can do on that wing the way it is. Well, one of the things I do need to do is make a whole bunch of these dollar patches. As I've said before, I bought these patches here. I call them dollar patches because they're kind of like a silver dollar or something. But anyway, I bought these to use as they were pretty cheap, and I thought they would be easier to use than cutting out my own grommets for putting around any patches or anything like that that it might need on the wing, any holes that got poked in it or anything. I use them on the end of the wingtips spars there where the wingtip bow attaches, on those attach fittings there, to go over those. But then I also use them over the seaplane grommets. There's the seaplane grommets. These get glued on the back of the wing, and I put one on each side of each one of the ribs so that it helps draw out any moisture or anything. And then these dollar patches went over that to kind of fair those in and stuff. Well, these patches are not fabric like this. They're not the Dacron fabric. They're some kind of cotton fabric or something. And I used them on the other wing, and I just had a heck of a time with them, getting them to conform to shape and stuff like that. Now, before, when I did them, I went ahead and cut my own out of fabric just like this, just like I did with the rest of the doilies. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've got all this extra fabric here. While I'm waiting for that glue to dry there, I can go ahead and make my own dollar patches here. And I've got this roll of tape that is just about the right size, just a little bit bigger than what those dollar patches were. I can lay out a circle with it, cut them out with the pinking shears. Anyway, wind up doing something. I was going to sharpen my pencil. That's what I was going to do. So that's what I'll go ahead and do, is lay some of these things out here. I should count, I guess, and see how many of them I need. If I have more than I need, that won't be any problem. And if I don't cut out enough, I can cut out some more. Now that thing's not perfectly round, but it doesn't make that much difference. So cutting these out with the pinking shears works pretty good, but when you start doing these tight turns like this on here, then it gets kind of bound up on around those pinking shears. So I'm just going to go ahead and rough these out with the regular scissors here. Well, there's the first one. Let's get a piece. Oh, dropped one. All right, I sat here for a few minutes chopping up these junk that I had left over from doing those doilies, and I got 52 of these dollar patches. I counted up on that rib there, and I think I needed 30, 31 or 32 of them. I'm not sure exactly how many, but so 52 will give me plenty to do what I need to do there. Yeah, let's see if I give myself enough time to trim up the ends of these two tapes that I got over here. Okay, here's a 3-inch tape. Let's see what I can do about making a little end on there. Which end is which on that? I think that's the right way, like that. Well, this is what I did with those other tapes that I used for the short ones. Is just went like this. Makes a nice round little end on that. That'll go right there, out in the middle, like that. I'll do that to the other one, and then I can go ahead and start laying those down. Now this butt rib tapes right here, I got them glued down on the butt rib, but I left them free on the end here so I could bring them down and cover up the ends of these finishing tapes here on both the leading edge and the trailing edge here. Just enough difference between these two false bars here, the inboard flap false bar and the next flap false bar. Just enough difference between the two of them that fabric doesn't quite match up perfectly like it did with both of them. Anyway, that works fine. Now I'm just going to glue this next one up right here just to the top, or the bottom as the case may be, of this false bar. Not going to try to get it around the edge. I'll have to form it around the edge with the iron. All right, well, here's the end of this tape, and I might have it just a little longer than I wanted it. But one of the things I've noticed here that I didn't notice before was that these tapes have a tendency to shrink as you put them on here. So if you cut one just exactly the right length that you want and you put it on here, when you get done with it, it's going to be shorter than what you wanted it. It's not going to wind up where you thought it was going to. I'm going to cut that back just a little bit more, so it's kind of halfway between these two ribs right here. There, that's better. Get a little bit of fuzzies on the end of that. There we go. It's getting back past where the poly brush was on there, so it's starting to get a little bit of fuzz on there. And so this one's going to be the same way. I'm going to cut it right here. Yeah, cut it right here so it folds down underneath this other tape. I'm going to get ready to fold it down. There we go. All right, I gotta wait for that stuff to cure up enough that I can finish it, let it set up for a little bit, and then I have to come back with the iron and fold this edge over. I have to cut out around these hinges. So meanwhile, I got a couple other things I got to do, I guess. I got to put some fuel in my pickup, and I've got to change the litter box for the cats in the cabin. I got the new litter for that, so I can change those. Well, I guess I'll go do some other things outside while this stuff is setting up. Finishing tapes for the lower part of the flap false bar and the ailerons false bar are all glued down and shaped up. I took the iron and shaped this aileron false bar tape
so it folded over that edge better, and then glued it down. I go over it with iron a little bit and shape it up some more. I'm going to go ahead and go over some of these other tapes and stuff and do a little bit more work on some of them. Then I'll put a second coat of polybrush, actually I guess the third coat of polybrush, over these tapes on this false spars. I was going to put another coat of polybrush on the ends of some of these tapes, the rib tapes where they come over, and I mated them up on the false spars. So that's all done and looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and wait for that polybrush to set up, and then I'll go over this again with the iron, and then we'll turn the wing over and do the other side.